Minivan, really?
Well, I think the one thing we know about Apple is that they define the whole concept of exceptional customer experience. And it's why the Apple iPhone just is in a different industry from every other smartphone out there, because it's all about fashion electronics, exceptional customer experience. And if Apple were to go into the car business, I think we all know that the customer experience would just be outstanding.
Okay. Well, Cory Johnson, if they can get my husband, whom you know, James, to go for a minivan-like vehicle, then that's saying something. But, as we talk about the prospects...
You've got like 70 kids to cart around. You're going to need a minivan eventually.
At some point, don't say. I got the third row. But, as we hypothesize about what an iCar-type vehicle might look like, I think the important thing to remember is the technology, Cory, that it could deliver.
So there's some very interesting developments and interesting challenges in the business of this electric car thing. And you talk about Tesla. I mean, maybe much more relevant is the Prius or the Chevy Volt, which are selling cars at a much more affordable price. And the real goal here is, can they get to a value proposition where they can have a profit that has the kind of 30-plus gross profit margins that Apple seems to love, which is the car business, of course, is not known for, but also cheap enough to reach a broad audience. Tesla has failed at that thus far. And maybe one of the reasons that they failed, as wonderfully chronicled in this new book about batteries, Powerhouse by Steve Levine, that the battery technology itself is one of the greatest challenges in chemistry that has yet to be solved. GM hasn't solved it. Tesla didn't even try to solve it. They just went with existing technology. And as far as I know, Apple hasn't solved it yet. Battery technology is essentially 200 years old and unchanged in that time. So the question is, are they going to try to evolve something that's both cheaper and can go for a longer charge? That's the real challenge out there in the world of batteries,
John,
and the challenge before Apple.
It is. John Sculley, when you look at Detroit right now and you look at the auto sector, what do you say to yourself is the opportunity there? How would you go about disrupting this space?
Well, I think, first of all, we see with companies like Uber that people are more interested in the ride than they may be in the car. So this idea in the sharing economy that people don't always have to own their transportation. Remember, a car sits 96% of the time parked in a parking lot. So you've got this expensive asset that's only actually moving a short time of its life. So I think we've got to expand our horizon of how we define the auto industry. Is the auto industry personal transportation? If so, it can include service businesses, and service businesses can have great customer experience. Uber's a good example of that.
John, the technology, as we've been saying, is really what Apple's about. So let me just ask you, why might they not just say, okay, we're going to focus on connectivity and have the best possible stuff inside that car for people to be able to connect to their home, be able to connect to their iPhone, be able to connect to everything, as opposed to building a vehicle?
Yeah, I don't think you have to necessarily build the vehicle. I think what you've got to do is focus on and say, what are the billion-dollar problems that need to be solved? And billion-dollar problems are people want convenience, they want comfort, they want value, they want a whole bunch of different things which go beyond just the styling and the engineering of the automobile itself.
Cory, you think Elon's feeling threatened at all right now?
Actually, maybe a little bit. It's interesting that so many engineers have left Tesla to go work at Apple. Apple also being sued today by the struggling battery maker A123. Which is seen as an innovator in the battery space, so their products haven't quite made it to market in any big way. But that Apple is really able to pluck some of the best and brightest in this world, in this technological world. Let us not forget that Ford and GM are technology companies with a lot of history and a lot of money thrown at a problem that they probably understand as well as anyone ever has. So it's a very competitive arena, and it's competitive in the world of hiring as well.
John, let me ask you a little bit about what you like out there for investing. Certainly you've got a lot of experience having been at the helm at Apple, having been CEO of Pepsi. How does that background inform what you're currently looking at in your current investments?
Well, it all comes back to, I think, one of the first principles of Apple, exceptional customer experience. And you start with looking for a big multi-billion-dollar problem to solve. The one that I'm particularly excited about now is in the razor industry. The reason for razors being so exciting is a $3 billion industry in the States. And it turns out that most people really don't get a very good shave. They don't know how to shave properly. When they use foamy shave creams, it doesn't soak into their skin. It actually clogs the razor and dulls the blades. And there's a real opportunity, and we're actually building a company now around the vision of the ultimate shave called 800razors.com. And what's really interesting, Trish, is that we're finding that we have Net Promoter Scores. This is the ultimate question for a consumer brand. Would you recommend this product or service to a family member or a friend? We have Net Promoter Score ratings for our 800razors.com that are right up there with Apple and Google, which is almost unheard of for a product category like personal care.
Hey, John, listen, my hat's off to you. If you can get all the hipsters to get rid of their beards, 2 thumbs up.
Hey, I'm sitting right here. What are you, really?
Sorry.
Sculley, where's the love?
Cory. But Isaac's in my ear saying, that guy's not a hipster. Anyway, finally, before I let John go, I just want to ask John your thoughts on the Snapchat valuation, $19 billion, behind Uber and Xiaomi. Are we getting a little too frothy out there in the tech space?
Well, I'm not the best one to ask them what valuations are, because every time I see a valuation, it turns out to be lower than what the next round of capital is. So I guess we just have to sit there and be pretty envious at what Snapchat and some few others, very few companies, are getting in this ultra-high band of valuations. WhatsApp was the same kind of a story.
Yeah.
It all depends on where you think these companies are going to go into the future and how they fit into the pattern of how people want to buy products and services.